The air feels different today, heavier, you know. It's April 19th, and if you've been watching the boards like I have, you knew something was bound to snap eventually. We aren't just talking about another close call or a tense radio exchange in the Gulf of Oman anymore. The line has been crossed, and it wasn't just a nudge, it was a full-blown kinetic engagement. I've been sitting here looking at the data, the statements from the White House, and the reports coming off the deck of the USS Spruance, and it's clear we've entered a new phase of this standoff. The United States Navy didn't just intercept a vessel today. They made a statement that echoes all the way from the North Arabian Sea to Tehran. It's the kind of move that changes the math for everyone involved, and honestly, it makes me wonder if we're looking at the opening act of something much larger. So let's take a step back and really look at the chessboard here. For weeks, the US has been maintaining this naval blockade around the Strait of Hormuz, effectively sealing the exit for Iranian shipping. We've seen dozens of ships get turned around, most of them realizing that testing an Arleigh-class destroyer isn't a winning strategy. But then comes the Tusca, a massive 900-foot-long Iranian-flagged cargo ship. Think about the scale of that for a second, 900 feet. This thing weighs nearly as much as a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, and it's not just some random merchant vessel. The Tusca is already under US Treasury sanctions because of its history with illegal activities, so why would they send this specific ship at this specific time to challenge a blockade that the US has been enforcing with zero exceptions? Was it a test of resolve, or was it a calculated gamble that the US wouldn't actually pull the trigger on a civilian vessel? Well, if the Iranians were looking for an answer, they got one that was loud, clear, and incredibly violent. The USS Spruance, a guided missile destroyer, intercepted the Tusca as it was steaming at 17 knots toward the Iranian port of Bandar Abbas. The reports say the Spruance gave them fair warning: vacate your engine room. We are prepared to subject you to disabling fire. Can you imagine being on that bridge? You're looking at a destroyer that has 96 missile launch cells and a 5-inch gun pointed right at your hull, and you decide to keep going? It's either extreme bravery or total desperation. I'm leaning toward the latter. The Iranians refused to stop, and that's when the Spruance opened up with its Mark 45 5-inch gun. Multiple direct hits right into the engine room. They didn't sink it, that's an important distinction. They disabled it. They blew a hole right through the heart of the ship, bringing 900 feet of steel to a dead stop in the water. This is where things get even more intense, because you don't just leave a disabled ship sitting there. Once the smoke cleared, the US Marines moved in. We're talking about specialized units, likely special operations, trained specifically for high-stakes boarding operations. They would have come in fast, either by fast roping from helicopters or hitting the sides in rigid hull inflatable boats, guns hot and ready for a fight. Did the Iranians fight back once the Marines were on deck? It doesn't look like it. The latest reports indicate the US now has full custody of the vessel and its crew. We're finally going to see what's actually inside those containers. If this ship was willing to take a 5-inch shell to the engine room just to avoid being stopped, there has to be something on board they didn't want us to find. But why now? Why this specific moment in the conflict? You have to look at the broader picture to understand the gravity of this. Iranian state media has been putting out some very dark signals lately. Right before this ship was hit, they released a statement saying they're ready for the war to resume. They've even identified target zones across the Middle East, places like Aramco, Yanbu, and Fujairah. It's like they're laying out a roadmap for a regional firestorm. They're claiming that all the recent US movements, the air bridges, the repositioning of warships, the exercises in Bahrain are all signs that a surprise American invasion of Iranian islands is imminent. They're calling our diplomatic efforts a deception campaign. So, what's really happening here? Is Iran genuinely convinced we're about to invade, or are they just trying to create enough psychological pressure to force concessions at the negotiating table? The reality is likely a mix of both. They see the C-17s and C-5s flying a constant stream of equipment into the region, and they see the Navy tightening the noose. From their perspective, the walls are closing in, and a cornered animal is always the most dangerous. And it's not just happening at sea. We're hearing reports of airstrikes hitting Houthi-controlled areas in Yemen, specifically the Meris district. Remember, the Houthis have been trying to harass shipping in the Red Sea and even launched missiles toward Israel. If the US is starting to clear out those launch sites, it means we're proactively removing the pieces Iran uses to strike from the shadows. But there's one detail in all of this that really sticks in my throat, something that should make everyone pause. While the Tusca was being boarded, radio intercepts picked up messages being sent to America's E6B Doomsday planes. These aren't your typical surveillance aircraft. These planes are designed to maintain command and control during a nuclear conflict. They're up there right now receiving these strange coded doorbell messages. We're talking about strings of phonetic code uniform, Hilo, Lobster, Yankee. It sounds like gibberish to the uninitiated, but in the world of strategic warfare, it's the language of high alert status. Why are the Doomsday planes on such active alert while a cargo ship is being seized? Does it make sense that a single ship interception would trigger this level of readiness? Maybe not on its own, but when you add up the blockade, the strikes in Yemen, the massive airlift of supplies, and the Iranian threats to hit global energy infrastructure, well, the pieces start to fit together into a very ugly puzzle. The US isn't just preparing for a skirmish, they are bracing for the worst case scenario. So where does this escalate? If this continues, the consequences will be serious for the global economy, for regional stability, and for the lives of thousands of service members on both sides. Iran has already said they have unpredictable military actions ready to go. They've made these threats before, and usually they don't amount to much more than rhetoric. But this time feels different. The USS Spruance firing on a flagged vessel is a massive escalation of the rules of engagement. It's a signal to every Iranian ship captain that the warning phase is over. If you try to run the blockade, you will be disabled. If you refuse to surrender, you will be boarded. There is no more middle ground, and that leaves Tehran with a very difficult choice to make. Do they back down and watch their economy and maritime influence wither under the blockade? Or do they follow through on their threats to turn the entire region into a conflict zone? If you look at the bigger picture, it seems like we're past the point of simple posturing. This is a strategic shift. The US is no longer just monitoring the situation. They are actively dictating the terms of engagement on the water. In my view, this isn't just a conflict over a single cargo vessel or a specific set of sanctions. This is about who controls the flow of power in the Middle East. By disabling the Tusca, the US has shown that the blockade is absolute. They are willing to use kinetic force against sanctioned entities, even at the risk of a broader war. It's a high-stakes game of chicken where the US just stopped swerving. And those Doomsday planes, they're the ultimate insurance policy. Their presence in the air, receiving those strange messages, is a silent warning to anyone thinking about escalating this to a strategic level. It says, we see you, we're ready for you, and we've already planned for what comes next. It's chilling, honestly, thinking about those crews circling high above while the Marines are down on the deck of a smoking ship. So what's the final assessment here? I think we're going to see more of these intercepts. Iran is going to keep testing the edges, trying to find a weak point in the blockade, and the US is going to keep meeting them with the same decisive force. The question isn't if there will be another engagement, it's when the Iranians will decide that the cost of testing us has become too high. This isn't just a localized incident in the Gulf of Oman. This is a fundamental realignment of how the US handles Iranian provocation. We've moved from strategic patience to strategic enforcement, and the world is watching to see who blinks first. Personally, I don't think it's going to be the guys with the AIRBORNE destroyers and the Doomsday planes. We'll keep a close eye on the Tusca and whatever they find in those holds. If there's smoking gun evidence of something truly illicit, expect the diplomatic and military pressure to ramp up even further. For now, we wait and watch the skies and the seas. It's going to be a long month, and this is only the beginning.